Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast for the Administrative Management course. Management is an interesting concept, and understanding how outside factors can alter a business and their planning and decision making is truly fascinating. Joining me today is a fellow classmate, Nick, and we will have a fun and interesting conversation about outside factors and how they influence decisions and plans and honestly just deciding how to successfully run the business. So, for the first concept, it's environmental change. So, having the layout, so having an open concept really makes it easy for, people to make decisions and feel like they can share ideas freely. Would you agree?
Absolutely. You definitely must have a lot of creativity when you're planning, especially when the environment can hugely affect it. Like if you want to organize a concert, there could be weather outside on
Mm-hmm.
that day. So you're going to have to schedule it for a day where the forecast would be less likely to rain overall, because the chance is definitely never zero, especially somewhere as
Right.
unpredictable as South Florida.
Exactly. I mean, just forecasting that in general just helps with the decision making. So determining where to have the concert, what time to have the concert, how hot it's going to be, weather, everything that's supposed to be like predictable, but it's not because of where we are. I mean, promoting like the independence and communication really helps with planning because like in any office building, people want to feel like they're heard, you know, like they have a say in the decisions that are being made and they can feel like they can influence any decision.
2020, the pandemic happened. Nobody saw it coming. How are
Exactly.
businesses going to respond to this and keep their stores open and not go out of business? Because the economy at the time wasn't doing good as a response to the virus. So many
Mm-hmm.
people started working remotely so that they could still make
Yeah.
a profit, especially on the marketing side. Restaurants that couldn't keep serving people in person because way less people would show up. There would be social distancing rules. They would instead deliver it to people's houses with programs like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and
Right.
that would also make those companies a lot of money. I'll
Mm-hmm.
bet you 1,000,000% that during the pandemic, those companies were successful. Like, that's an understatement. They thrived in that environment.
They really did.
Those companies were the quickest to adapt to change. And the
Mm-hmm.
restaurants who used those services were the ones that stayed afloat. Small family
Right.
businesses that wouldn't team up with Uber and any other of those services would go under, which happened a
Mm-hmm.
lot in a lot of locations. A lot of mom and pop locations who
Absolutely.
didn't
Yeah.
have the technology.
I mean, like with the performance, especially during COVID, when a bunch of like reviews would come in and say, we couldn't do this because of COVID, or they wouldn't accommodate because of COVID and all of that. Like with the social distancing, especially in like amusement parks or in little fast food chains, it was very difficult to plan on how they would succeed or how they would accommodate to their customers because they were trying to keep this standard for preventing people from getting the COVID-19 virus and all of that. I mean, but they also did receive like the continuous feedback, which developed skills on how they could accommodate to these people. So they could do like the 6 feet rule. So in like ice cream places like Ben and Jerry's, they would have like little plaques on the floor where people could stand so that they could still get their ice cream, but they were still social distancing. And I mean, I think they planned perfectly for that regarding the rules that were set.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And even department stores would use this. You'd go to
Mm-hmm.
Costco, the lines would start having the circles that require you to be 6 feet apart.
Yep.
Places where you have to communicate with someone, such as the embassy or an airport, they would install a new screen between you and them to prevent any
Mm-hmm.
viruses or mucus from traveling through.
Right. And they did that a lot with like nail salons and all of that.
That's right.
They would have, yeah, so people would have like these face coverings or they would have the plastic. barrier between them so that they could still communicate with these people and have the customer service experience, but they were still meeting those requirements of don't go outside or don't do this or make sure you're staying 6 feet away from people so you don't transfer this virus from people.
So if you put finances into the picture, a lot of these big chains and big store departments and all of this would have to spend a lot of budgeting, like millions of dollars, into
Mm-hmm.
installing some maybe temporary walls or a lot of infrastructure and signs that'll warn you to stay 6 feet apart and all these precautions. New
Yeah.
policies would have to be pushed about how someone uses the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an expenditure for all companies to face, but it's worth it because they'll be making more profits and staying afloat within this new environment.
Right.
So sometimes there has to be sacrifices, but if you're not willing to make it, you're going to fall behind. And that's part of
Exactly.
adapting and planning to the environmental factors and changes.
Right. And then that also kind of ties in like the environmental complexity of it. So like simple environments, like the retail stores like you mentioned, they would have to change with these trends. So they would have to keep bringing in product that met the trend at the time, but they still had to keep that barrier, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, people came in and they wanted to buy stuff, but they could only do so much for so long because of the requirements or the standards. It was a truly crazy time.
Yeah, it was pretty damn crazy.
Yeah,
But
I
depending on the kind of
mean,
person you are, though, you'll definitely like it. If you're a person who
yeah,
likes computers and you like staying inside, that was probably a highlight year for you.
exactly. I mean, listen, I work retail, so I absolutely loved being home all the time, doing everything online, staying away from people. It was great.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, also with like simple and complex environments, really depends on the industry itself. Because when the industry is selling one specific thing, you're meeting one specific customer or one specific audience. So you need to plan on how you're going to sell these things to these people and how you can try and attract more customers.
Yeah, those are our demographics.
Hmm.
Like with how
I
each
mean,
generation passes, we move on into Generation Z. More and more people
right,
are getting into video games instead of going outdoors and playing, actual sports.
right,
So game
right.
companies and all those are going to get bigger and bigger as the generations go on. So demographics plays a big part in the environmental complexity and who you are targeting.
Exactly.
It,
I mean, like as we slowly go into like the newer generation, the Gen Alpha, I mean, they are nothing but technology lovers. So, like Apple, Samsung, Nintendo, all of them are starting to gain more profit because of the demographic, especially after COVID and all of that. I mean, they were born into TikTok and Instagram and not so much Facebook, but I mean, they're completely surrounded by technology. So all of these apps and like different companies, they can target these demographics because of the trends and because of who they want to attract as a customer base.
yeah, kids these days are learning more from their iPads than they are from their parents.
Hmm.
And they're like wired differently. They're not going to learn their math equations as easily as they are going to learn AI prompting. A lot of
Exactly.
generations are mad about that they aren't learning basics as they did when they were a kid. But that's because when the
Right.
environment changes, you're going to have to learn different things.
Exactly. Like you have to look at the past experiences and then you have to also look at the procedures in place. So obviously the older generations they don't know so much about technology, so the newer generations have to continuously learn them and teach them even in like office spaces where it's a whole mix of a demographic. Everybody's teaching everybody everything.
I had a friend
So it's
once who wanted to start a
mhm,
company where we would teach old people in how to learn software. He would have like a classroom. This was his concept. He would buy out a
mhm,
place and rent it out, and he would set up tables, kind of like a classroom, but also
mhm.
office cubicles, where he would have these elders who paid for their curriculum to come in, and they would learn. It's a shame the business didn't really go out into play because I think it was a very good concept.
Yeah.
But then I developed upon this concept like, what if we made some kind of software assistant for the older folks who can learn how to use things like Windows and Mac OS through
Mhm.
navigation with voice and arrows.
Right.
This idea may have already been done, but that is one way to not see this as some kind of hurdle or difficulty or something for other people to handle, but seen as an opportunity.
Exactly. And the more you see it as an opportunity, the more room there is to grow and plan for the future and all of that. I mean, everybody's getting older all the time, so you constantly have to keep up with them, keep up with how they want to learn and what they want to learn.
So this
And the
goes into
best
the
way,
patterns that companies will observe and look through data that they'll figure out the flexibility, forecasting, consumer demands, the competitive advantages with innovation. They'll look at what's sold during each season, the new trends.
I mean, Apple and Samsung are just constantly going at it. I mean, I'm an Apple user, and I mean, I've loved Apple, but I mean, recently Samsung has just been creating these new ideas like a better camera or how to zoom in better or how to get Google to help you instead of Siri and having complete access to AI, which is good and bad.
That's the thing.
But
I can definitely talk passionately about this.
mhm,
Google is leading this charge with their Gemini AI, and the Pixel's
yeah,
flagship feature has been their camera and what AI can do to enhance it lately. You can add
hmm,
someone to a photo, remove them, and it's all
there it is,
very
yeah,
user friendly, surprisingly. Just when people think that
right.
Android is much less and that Apple's like the one that more people can understand, including kids and older people,
Mhm.
Android's been trying to follow suit with that. And just as Apple realizes that Android is being really innovative, Apple's going to try and copy them by turning
Right.
Gemini into Apple Intelligence AI.
I mean, everybody's doing AI. So, I mean, like, I have a Lenovo computer and they have like Copilot on Microsoft now. And then they have just AI generated responses when you Google anything. I mean, it's just a constant keeping up with the trend of ChatGPT and then more artificial intelligence and robots coming in. Mm, that's terrifying to me, but people like robots, I guess.
Google focuses so much on this AI status quo on their new phone generation that they will not pay attention to any other features such as stylus support, accessibility. But accessibility, I guess, kind of is there through AI. But there are
Yeah.
some features that I really wish I could see come back, like the audio jack. But this is stuff from
Mhm.
an older generation, and since they don't really care that much about the older generation of technology, they're not going to put them in. They're only going to focus
Right.
on what's currently trending, and that's the development of
Right.
AI.
Yeah. I mean, when you ask anybody from an older generation, like millennials or Gen X, Gen Y, all of them, they don't really care to understand the new technology
They're going to
because,
have a few grievances to give for sure about the new things and what they
right,
wish that could come back, such as a
exactly,
removable battery from their phone.
right. Interesting. Didn't know about that one.
Yeah, phone batteries used to be removable. I had a few phones that worked like that, except when I dropped them, it would come apart, and people at school freaked out thinking my phone broke.
Oh, I can only imagine. I dropped my phone and I'm terrified, but my battery stays in there, so I can't
But the
complain too
advantage of
much, I
removable
guess.
batteries was that you could just put in a new one, and your phone is suddenly fully recharged and having to wait hours.
Right. I mean, like anything. Just the home button. For me, I miss my home button. I really do. Because
Definitely.
just touching the home screen, sometimes it doesn't work or the phone lags, and then I just I miss my home button. I hate to say it.
When Apple removed the home button with their iPhone X, every company had
Hmm.
to follow suit because the gestures features seemed really intuitive to them. And with every
Right.
company falling in love with the gestures, they would follow suit. And Android, if you
Exactly.
swipe back, it'll take you back instead of a back button on your phone.
Hmm. I mean, now everybody's doing Face ID, facial recognition, or fingerprint
Biometrics like
recognition.
fingerprint.
Yeah, I mean, Apple had touchscreen on their home button, and it was great until your home button stopped working, which I guess they planned to remove the home button because of that. But now, like with Face ID, kind of scary. But now everybody's meeting that marketing demand of having
Because
easy
many people
access to the
conspire
phone.
that they are collecting your data through these facial IDs. It's going to a big government
Right.
database, and they'll be able to identify you more than just your passport and your social
Hmm.
security. And they can link it all
Exactly.
together with your data. They'll know what you do in your everyday life. They'll see where
Right.
you are.
Hmm.
And with YouTube listening, so they can provide advertisements, that's also another theory that Google is building a quantum computer that can collect all your data so that they can advertise to you and get even more money out of you.
That's actually crazy. I think that's insane, but whatever. But that can easily tie into like this next one, like resource scarcity. Like they have to make sure that to meet these marketing demands, they have enough resources so that they can do these new things and even implement the Face ID and collecting information and all of that. I mean, I wouldn't say they have a tight deadline, but I mean, since they've talked about it, now they kind of put themselves on a deadline, right?
Right. When developing AI, they require they require so much processing power that Nvidia
Mm-hmm.
is making so much money from Google and all these other big tech giants like Facebook in order to develop their AI and collect data, they have to buy a bunch of graphics cards and burn them by mining data all day and night. So that costs billions of dollars. It's a huge investment and it hurts Mother Earth herself because it's a
Yeah.
lot of e-waste that's being poured out, like all these
Mm-hmm.
electronics that have become defunct and burned down just to develop their AI, just to do almost as good as what a human can when it comes to being generative, writing a story, creating images. And that's the part with
Right.
resource scarcity.
Right. I mean, like they're blowing this budget by burning everything, so they have to try and accommodate by trying to keep their budget and having enough resources so that they can use whatever they burned or anything, honestly. I mean, to make new phones, you need batteries, you need the what is it, the motherboard
Yeah,
phone?
the motherboard.
Right. You need to have the budget, you need to have the resources, you need to have all of the information so that you can actually do these things and meet the demand of the market
It's
and
very
be able
similar to
to.
mining cryptocurrency. That's also very
Right.
graphics intensive. That you'll buy like a Nvidia 3060 Ti. No, mind that more like a 4090, and you'll
Mm,
use that graphics card until it's not in that much of a good condition anymore for further use. So you can't even resell it after that. It'll be either e-waste or recycle
I mean, recycle is good, but you can
if you
only
can do
recycle
it.
so much. I mean, like I don't know. I feel like the waste just blows the budget for what? And then they don't have the materials and they don't have the equipment for it to try and replicate it. I just,
And they'll keep mining.
um,
They will produce new hardware as much as they can muster.
mhm,
You can only think
just
about where all those resources are coming from.
right. I mean, with the financial portion of it, they have to pay to get these resources. They have to pay for labor. They have to pay these workers that are doing this work and mining and harming the earth. But then they also have to allocate some money so that they can actually do the work of building these phones and building all of this technology so that they can do all of
It's
these things that
interesting
they
because
advertise.
when developing such as an electric car, the battery is probably the most environment polluting part of it. Not when it's in use,
Right.
because when an electric car is in use, it's already produced, it creates zero carbon emissions. A
Right.
person who is riding a bicycle will create more carbon emissions because of their breathing. So
Hmm.
while very environmentally friendly of the finished product, creating it is the part that harms the earth, because when they're mining that lithium ion from deep in the
Hmm.
earth, that's going to create a lot of the emissions. And that's where a lot of it comes from. Once the battery is
Hmm.
already developed, it'll once most of the resources are mined, fueling the cars and keeping the service going is not that intensive on the earth. So
Yeah.
there's a good outcome to it, but it's the suffering that it takes to get there, and that's part of
Right.
the scarcity.
Exactly. I mean, and then they make the cars so expensive. That's my thing. I don't know how they're financing anything if the prices are where they are. I don't like electric cars.
I'm a fan of electric bikes because that has a very good impact. It gets people fit. They go
Mhm.
further.
Right.
It incentivizes them to go further, and
Exactly.
it's very friendly to the earth.
Right. And then people will feel more inclined to ride the bike because they know that they're getting healthier by doing it, or they're actually exercising and doing stuff. And just going outside, it's already a mental break in itself. And then just riding a bike, going literally anywhere where
Precisely.
you can just,
Are you someone who
right.
likes to ride bikes or not really?
I don't like to ride bikes, but I do like to take a lot of walks.
Yeah.
I have more carbon emissions, but financially I
Yeah,
make
again, that's the strange part. A person who rides an analog bike with no electric battery, or someone who is even running in the morning, will produce more
mhm,
carbon emissions than someone with an e-bike, because all the breathing that they're doing collectively produces a lot of carbon dioxide, and it takes less
that's
effort to pedal something that's already electric assisted, because you're putting in
right.
less work, you're breathing hard less too. So that's a very strange thing in emotional environmental scarcity, mind my words. Mining it
That
produces a lot of pollution, but then the use of the product pays off so well for the environment.
Yeah, that's just it's crazy how that all works. But
Yeah,
now
precisely.
I have a couple of questions for you. So, question number one, how do you think businesses can overcome physical changes within the workplace?
Business overcoming physical changes. Well, for one
Hmm.
thing, like an animation studio, when they find out that, hold on, when an animation studio finds out that AI can help do a lot of shading for their animation, that'll save them so much money, but at the same time, they're going to lay off a lot of detail animators, which is the sad part. But
Right.
also, the companies are saving so much money that in the long term, they'll be on top with way less manufacturing costs.
Yeah, but that just kind of helps with the scarcity because they don't have as many skilled workers, don't you think?
So it's very nuanced, and it's something that I don't like.
Hmm.
And I see why they do it. It's a lot of that corporate
Right.
greed.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of environmental change. A lot of employees for game companies and film companies are being laid off when
Hmm.
automation is in there.
That's just insane to me. Um, but on to the next question. How can one determine if they are entering a simple or complex environment when they're joining an industry?
How can one enter a simple, complex environment? Is that
Hmm.
what I heard
How
right?
can one how can one determine if they're entering simple or complex environment?
Okay, I see. So how can one determine? You have to know the art. If you
Hmm.
are someone who is good at being a waiter, a lot of it
Right.
can be second nature to you. But if you're someone
Hmm.
who barely takes a step, who's mostly lived a sedentary lifestyle, you might be entering something very daunting, because for sometimes, like on a holiday such as Cinco de Mayo, when you're working at a Mexican place, they're going to have you work in double shifts for 12 hours. So
Right.
that's going to be very stressful on you if you are
Hmm.
not prepared for it. So you have to
Yeah.
know what you're getting yourself into and what skills something is going to require. If you want to be a food
Yeah.
runner at a place, you're going to have very good communication skills. If you want to use a piece of paper, if you don't want to use one, you're going to have good memory as well. So you're going to have to
Hmm.
remember precisely what your customers ordered and how does this guy want his burger? Does he want the tomato? Does he want the lettuce? Does he want the mayo, ketchup? Or does
Yes,
he
all the minor
want to omit
details.
this part? Does he want sesame bread?
Right.
And you're going to have to be fast too. Fast and
Hmm.
efficient. You can't just make one trip from the kitchen to the table without doing something else if it requires some attention from you. That's easy to do.
So you really have to know yourself to be able to make a decision like that. when you're entering any type of industry.
Exactly. Whether it be the white collar industry or going out there doing your own business manually, such as an electrician. A lot of thought
Okay.
goes into, and that's definitely a complex environment.
Hmm.
Someone might think they're going into something simple because it's like, okay, all I have to do is make sure that these two cables are connected, but it's much more than that. You have to
Yeah.
know the blueprints. You have to know, sometimes you have to know the cable network that goes beneath the neighborhood and part of the American grid, which is a lot
Right.
of blueprinting, architecture, mathematics. And if someone hates math, they're going to hate this career as well.
And lastly, how can businesses overcome scarcity, and how do you think they can prevent it in the future?
This is where resourcefulness comes in.
Hmm.
You have to be able, if you want to save like the rubber of the world, you can have shoes not be thrown out but recycled because
Right.
basketball courts are made from soles of shoes. It's interesting. Instead of putting it all to waste and having yourself be low on resources. Back then, Coca-Cola used to recycle their glass bottles. They would have turn-in stations so
Yeah.
that people wouldn't throw these glass bottles out in the street, have them shatter, create environmental obstructions and dangers to other people who could step on it or the animals as well.
Hmm.
It's a shame that they stopped doing it, but it's because the people, they would take this service for granted and they would instead throw out these bottles instead of using the return stations that the Coca-Cola company has set around in factories, places outside for people to return their bottles, for them to be repurposed and refilled, and back on the front lines, being sold along other side, other bottles of Coke. And it tasted
Wow.
so much better too. I don't know if you ever had Coke from a glass bottle, but it tastes so much better
I
comparatively
don't
than
know
one
what
from a
it is.
can or from a plastic bottle.
Um,
It was a very
I
genius way of handling resource scarcity, but I guess at the same time it wasn't if the consumers weren't complying. It wasn't
right.
convenient enough for them to get out their feet and go bring them to the return station. They even
Right.
tried to reward them by making them get 50 cents. It was the 1950s, so the economy was smaller. By giving
Yeah.
them 50 cents every time they turned in a bottle, and they still
Hmm.
wouldn't comply. So they went down the greedy capitalist road that they have today.
Wow. It's really fascinating to think about. Like you want to reduce the scarcity, but you can't make people comply, no matter how hard you try. You can reward them, you can incentivize them, but people do what people want to do.
You can only pull that off if it's extremely convenient and it
Hmm.
lines in with the consumer's instinct and what's easier to them, making it user friendly. Like how
Right.
TikTok got people to retain viewer retention was by just making it so easy to simply swipe down. They'll even tell you, like, hey, swipe down if you want to get more reels and whatever.
Yeah.
The Instagram will remind you, Snapchat will remind you, any other platform that's copy will remind you. And
Yeah.
that's how they get people to comply because it's easy. You can just turn your brain off and do it.
Yeah.
To return a glass bottle to the return station at Coca Cola, that required brain power. That required taking time out of your day, driving there. So people weren't going to do that because people live busy lives, especially when they were making less money than they are today.
Well, this was an incredible discussion that we had. Um, Truly understanding the background of businesses and how they plan for these decisions and how they plan with environmental factors and scarcity and all of that is really, truly fascinating to me. Knowing how you can overcome these subtle obstacles, ensuring employees are happy or that the business is succeeding is beneficial. I mean, would you agree?
Absolutely. You have to be able to adapt to the environment as it comes. And a big takeaway
Mhm.
is that planning is not just a routine task, it's a dynamic skill. A great manager knows that even the most beautiful top to bottom plan can become a pitfall if it doesn't account for the outside world.
Exactly. Well, I just want to give you a big thank you for joining us today and listening. I'm Alex Cardenas, and this is my amazing guest, Nick. And thank you for listening.